You're listening to The Adventuring Party, talking about gaming the Irish way.
Welcome to the party. I'm Shane Scar Carr.
I'm still Savage. And this week we are joined by a very special guest.
A preeminent member of our industry.
Yes, certainly. She has been described as a rising star, integral to, or very influential in both the UK and Irish games industry. Also as great crack and dead sound. It is the one and only Kat Tobin of Pelgrane Press. Welcome, Kat, to the show.
Thanks very much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Thanks for coming. We're always glad to see that you have time for a little podcast like ourselves.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, there aren't enough Irish games podcasts, so yeah, definitely.
We've been chipping away at the problem for a while. We do our best.
A little while. We're new up and comers in the scene. Yeah. We're closing in. Is this episode 594?
I think that was last week's episode. I think it's 595.
Wow.
I better catch up then. Okay, but it's not all our work. There's a long line of ancient ancestors behind us who are probably listening to this right now, going, "Get on with it." So I'll hand over to you, Shane.
I refuse to believe there was another Shane before this. That's total lies, hearsay, and rumors. But anyway, we're not. This isn't about ourselves. This is about Kat, and I guess the best person to explain Kat would be Kat. So, Kat, please tell us something about yourself, where you came from, and how you got to this wonderful mess.
Okay, so as you've already said, I'm Kat Tobin. I'm originally from West Cork in Ireland, and I went to college in University College Cork, and it was there that I first discovered role-playing. And there's a whole kind of story about that I've told people before, but we don't need to get into that now. Anyway, the fact is that I joined the Wargaming and Role-Playing Society in UCC, and it was, absolutely just love at first game for me. I was like, this is me. I am home. This is my place in the world, is being here, gaming with gamers. And that's never really changed me. That was a long time ago now. I'm not going to date myself by saying how long ago, but I volunteered a lot for the Wargaming and Role-Playing Society in college, and I ran their big kind of games convention, WorkCon, and kind of through that I met a lot of people in the Irish kind of gaming scene. I co-founded a fully residential convention called K2 with Brian Nesbitt and Ashley Perryman, who are also both very involved in the Irish RPG scene in the 90s and 2000s as well. And then I moved over to Edinburgh. I got involved with the convention over in Edinburgh. And I got dragged into running Dragon Meet in London. And I ran that for a couple of years. And while I was there, I met my now business partner, Simon Rogers. And he had a project editor working for him at the time called Beth Lewis. And she actually ended up moving on to mainstream publishing. So she's currently working for Orbit. Is it Orbit or is it Tor? Oh my gosh, total blank. I shouldn't have said that.
There might have been a takeover somewhere on the line.
But anyway, she moved into mainstream publishing, and so a job came up in Pelgrane, and Simon asked me if I'd consider applying for it, and I applied for it and interviewed and got it. And I think I hope that he hasn't regretted that decision. It was 7 years ago now. So I've been with Pelgrane for 7 years and about 3 months, and I'm not the kind of person who can let things alone. So if I see a thing that needs to be done, I kind of tend to do it. So over time, I kind of upgraded my job from being the project editor, which was my initial job title, to managing director, which is my current title. And over the course of that 7 years as well, Simon very generously offered me 50% of the business. So I'm now a co-owner with Simon as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Could you tell?
A meteoric rise.
Yeah.
A rags to riches story. When will Hollywood take hold of this inspirational tale and bring it to the wider world?
Yeah, but
I just.
So, could you tell us a bit more about Pelgrane? Its rise might not have been quite as meteoric, but it's still. It got. When did Pelgrane get started, and what kind of path did it take to get to where it is now?
So Simon originally founded Pelgrane in 2002, and he's based over in London. And he founded it. He co-founded it with his then business partner, Sasha Bolton. So they worked on it for quite a while. It was originally founded actually to publish the Dying Earth role-playing game, which is based on Jack Vance's Dying Earth series. So Simon and Sasha were both massive fans of that, and they got the license to do the RPG of it. And then Pelgrane, which is obviously a creature from the Dying Earth, was founded to publish that RPG. So I think Pelgrane pretty much exclusively did Dying Earth content until around 2006, when and Robin Laws was one of the pivotal writers of the Dying Earth RPG. And Simon and him were having a conversation, and Simon was expressing his kind of frustration that there weren't good investigative games. So he charged Robin with designing a role-playing system that kind of helped you to solve mystery games. So you wouldn't have to, and that kind of came out of a frustration with games like Call of Cthulhu, where, you walk into a room and, the GM says, you look under the bed, roll your spot hidden, then you roll your spot hidden and you fail it. And there's that sense of frustration where you're like, I know there's something under the bed. And the GM's like, I really need you to get this clue.
And the cultist is like, why haven't no one noticed me?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
I'm here, I'm waiting.
Right here in the wardrobe, ready to jump out at you. So Robin ended up designing what's called the Gumshoe system, which is, again, it's designed for investigative role-playing and for kind of mystery-solving games. And the idea of it is that you just, it's never interesting to fail to get information. So you always get the clue, you always get the information, and then the way it plays out is how you then kind of analyze that information, how you put it together, and what decisions you make on the back of that. So Pelgrane launched the Gumshoe system with the ESA terrorists back in 2006, and then that was followed up with a number of other Gumshoe titles. So there was a science fiction one, Ashen Stars. There was another kind of a horror one called Fear Itself. And there was a police procedural superheroes mutants game called Mutant City Blues. And then in 2008, they got Ken Hite on board, who had written games like Gumshoe, or like GURPS Horror, and Star Trek. And Ken started work on Trail of Cthulhu, which is the Gumshoe adaptation of, it's the Gumshoe Mythos, Cthulhu Mythos game. And that proved to be, obviously the Gumshoe system combined with, the investigative problem solving of the Cthulhu Mythos was just a really, really perfect match. So we released Trail of Cthulhu in about 2008. Actually, it might have been as late as 2010. And that really kind of bumped up the company kind of size-wise and profile-wise a lot. It got a lot of people's attention, and it really helped to kind of increase the scope of the company. So at that point, Simon took on Beth Lewis, who's my predecessor, like I mentioned. And then with having two of them working on the company, grew it even more. And then in 2013, Beth left, I started, and we released the 13th Age role-playing game, which is a D20 fantasy game, which was written by Rob Hainsey, who did D&D 4th Ed, and Jonathan Tweet, who did D&D 3.5. And that, again, that really kind of brought Pelgrane a lot more into the kind of it got a lot more, it grew the company a lot more, and it brought a lot more attention to us, I guess, as a company, and we really kind of scaled up again then as a company, kind of on the back of 13th Age, because obviously this was before D&D 5th Ed was released, and a lot of people were still kind of really looking around for a solid D20 fantasy game to run adventures. So that's kind of, so we're now kind of a company, we have this big D20 fantasy game, which is really, really kind of trad, but it's got a lot of story game elements in it as well. And Simon and I are both we love our kind of little indie story games. You know, that's really something that we love playing. And we're all, I think everyone in the company is a big kind of a Cthulhu Mythos head. So we've ended up doing a lot of different takes on Cthulhu Mythos gumshoe games, because again, it's just such a good fit of system to theme and tone of games we found. So we've done quite a few of those. We've just released the Yellow King RPG, which is obviously based on Robert Chambers' Yellow King stories. We've got The Fall of Delta Green, which adapts Delta Green, the role-playing game, for gumshoe, you know, as well as kind of Trail of Cthulhu. And we've got a one-player, one GM adaptation of gumshoe as well, which and we've got another Mythos game for that, which is called Cthulhu Confidential. There's like four different Cthulhu Mythos RPGs, like, and I know that we're not finished yet on that. Like,
it's a lot of people keep going back to.
Oh, well, you can have medieval Dark Ages Cthulhu,
absolutely.
Mecha Cthulhu. I mean, the doors are open for so many places to misuse Cthulhu and Yog-Sothoth.
You know,
but that's it's been probably one of the lines that Pelgrane Press has been best known for, outside of, say, Chaosium, is your output in the mythos, the Lovecraft mythos. But you've always been very careful with it. You've made sure not to sort of go off into the wilder hinterlands in terms of mashing it into something else. Do you think it's important that these properties are sort of treated as more or less the thing they are, the thing they were as their creator created them, rather than looking for some new flavour to add to the mix?
I think that so two of the writers that have contributed kind of the most to our kind of output, essentially, Ken Hite and Robin Laws, are both very big horror fans, and like having Gareth Hanrahan coming in as well, like obviously he's also a massive horror fan, so they really have a kind of an academic or an intellectual approach to horror. Like they really look at horror as a kind of a means to an end, or as a way of telling a really interesting and engaging and gripping story. So I think there just isn't very much appetite in the company for, going really gonzo with any of the games. But in saying that, I mean, Trail of Cthulhu has, there's two different ways you can play it. You can either play it in the purist mode, which is very bleak and Lovecraftian, and everyone's going to die. That's the best possible outcome, is that everyone dies, because you do not want to stay alive in one of those games. But there's also a pulp mode, and that's a lot more kind of shotguns versus Cthulhu, kind of, blasting away at these epic kind of mythos creatures. So, that kind of can go a bit gonzo. We've also got a time travel gumshoe game called Time Watch, which was written by Kevin Culp. And again, that's a lot more, because it's time travel, I think that lends itself towards a more kind of pulpy tone. So it's not so much about, I think it's more the preferences of the individual writers and the kind of stories that they're interested in telling with their games, more so than any sort of kind of respect for the properties in themselves, if that makes sense. And certainly there are a lot of issues with Lovecraft and with Lovecraft's writing. He's just phenomenally racist and really very sexist as well. So
I'd heard. Yeah.
So we've always tried to kind of steer, we've tried to kind of capture what we think are the good aspects of his writing, the making the monsters mysterious and unknown, unknowable and terrifying, rather than, othering different people.
Well, that's answered all of my questions. I think we can cut things off there.
Sorry,
it's a fantastic overview of such a prolific company. Yeah. Shane, shall we just move straight to the next section?
Well, I just wanted to check, just to give us what's a day in the life like for the head of a award-winning RPG company? Just to give people some bit of industry perspective.
Yeah. So I mean, I think one of the biggest or the most common misconceptions, I think, about the RPG industry, and particularly about RPG companies, is how big they are, right? So pretty much, I mean, apart from we've got a Becky Smith in. She's now part-time working on customer support. So if you send us an email, she'll be likely to be the one who's responding to you. But other than that, and my business partner Simon still deals with foreign language licensees and that kind of thing. But pretty much everything else is me. So on any given day, I can be doing literally anything from, a chat like this on a podcast to contacting writers, developing text, looking at what they've done, doing kind of copy edits and developmental edits, or writing up art notes for a text, contacting artists, working with them to try and get the best possible art for a book. Contacting layout artists, or even laying things out myself, like smaller things I tend to just do the layout on. Kind of working with them again to get it to the final print product. Contacting printers, which is the least favorite part of my job. Trying to get them to print manuscripts and hopefully not have any miscommunications or issues with them. I also then upload our products so I do all of the maintenance of our web store, kind of anything back-endy on that. I'm also working on a website upgrade at the moment, so I'm working with a web developer on that. What else do I do? We've got a distributor in the US, and he's responsible for making sure that game stores all around the world can get our books. So I might be talking to retailers about our books, or I might be talking to him, trying to get him to distribute our books to retailers who are having problems getting them. Trying to think what else.
It's already got quite a list.
It's really kind of, but I guess that's what I love about it, is that it's it's the whole end-to-end process, right, that I'm involved with. I get to do a little bit of everything because I have a really, really tiny attention span, and I get bored very quickly. So it's great that I can just, accounting, like the finances, kind of strategic planning. I in theory should have time to do that, but that's always one of those things that gets bumped back. All of the marketing for the company, if you see things on social media, that's all me. I can be literally doing 100 different things on any given day. But I love it though. I mean, that's my ideal job, having that variety.
So, one of my next questions was actually going to be, would you do it all again if you had to do it over? But it sounds like you're pretty happy in this position you are.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of coming up through gaming in Ireland, this is the dream. This was the dream for everyone growing up. And I still, I meet people at cons and stuff, and they kind of say to me, wow, you actually went and did it. And I'm like, I know, probably I should have gone and got a job that actually made money. But this, I love this so much. I love, I think I have a bit of a Pollyanna-ish kind of view of the industry, I think, in that I really think that gamers are some of the best people in the world. I genuinely believe that. And certainly for me, Pelgrane customers are just amazing. They're so, they're really good people. They have really kind of positive beliefs, and they're really supportive of us and of everything we do. So, it's a lot of errors, and it's very badly paid, and there is a lot of, there are always kind of complaints and niggles and stuff like that. But no, it's still my dream job. It really is. I just love this. And that's the thing about it is that it's a thing that you have to do because you love it. You can't do this for respect or money or, anything else, because there's just none of any of that.
But what about the glitz and glamour? What about the red carpet events?
Yeah, well, obviously, yeah. Well, so there's an award ceremony called the Ennies, which are generally presented every year at Gen Con, and that's.
I believe you've done quite well at those.
Yeah, we have, yeah, which has been great. But it's, it's that kind of recognition is just, it's out of this world. Really, it's unbelievable because you kind of sit here in your, well, I sit here in my little house, in West Cork, kind of isolated from everyone, and you just work away kind of in a little silo because so many of us work remotely as well. Most companies will kind of have a lot of remote workers. So it's just fantastic to be there in a room of your peers and kind of get recognized for the work that you've done. There's very little kind of, there's a lot of kind of nitpicking and not very much people going, actually, this is, really good. So it's nice to be noticed.
So, Kat, it sounds like Pelgrane is a very digital company. Like a lot of companies in today's modern, whizzy computerized age. Would you say that Pelgrane is more an Irish company or more of an international company?
I think that's a really tough one because obviously the company was founded in London by two English guys. So it started off being very, very English. But there is a kind of an Irish temperament that's really come in, I think, like a little bit when Gareth Hanrahan started, but then I really can't be anything other than Irish. I'm just kind of all Irish all the time. And I feel that I've definitely brought a kind of an Irish flavour to it. And certainly in terms of, like, myself and Gareth are basically 1.5 people's time worth of time. And that's based here in Ireland. And then we've got Becky working part-time in the UK. So in terms of the people who are actually employed by the company, most of us work in Ireland. But then our freelancers are really, really based all around the world. We have a lot of people working for us in North America, in both the US and Canada. And, we've got like a lot of kind of European friends and colleagues and freelancers as well. So yeah, I think if anything, the kind of shutdown caused by the global pandemic has really shown what a kind of an online international company we are, because we've just been able to kind of really pick up everything that we've been working on. There've been no real interruptions, I guess, because we were already doing all of our stuff online. We use kind of Slack for team communications, and we talk a lot on email, and we use Google Documents and things. So I guess it is each kind of country brings its own flavor to it. So I think we recently did a pub quiz, and I hadn't realized that pub quizzes weren't a thing in the US and Canada. And our North American colleagues were kind of going, so how does this work? Do you just ask questions?
We drink, mate. We drink.
we drink and we answer things.
Drinking is a loud man in the corner.
Yeah, exactly.
They are a quintessentially Irish gaming thing, aren't they?
They are, yeah. And it's that kind of, like I said, I'm very definitely, I've come out of Irish gaming culture. I was just really, I really cut my teeth kind of in gaming in Ireland in the 90s, and it's just, and that is still kind of very much how I do things, and how I am at conventions, how I go to conventions, the fact that we go to a lot of conventions now, whereas we didn't really before I started with Pelgrane. It's just all of these things are very much Irish sensibilities that I feel like I'm kind of bringing to the company. And also there's definitely a lot more tan bashing than there used to be as well. One of our writers has kind of Irish, he's from the US, but he has Irish heritage. So so he has a phrase he always says called, which is like either the hated British or the hated English. And he says that a lot. And he didn't really used to before I started.
Oh dear. So. Good grudges make good neighbours.
Yeah.
Right. So my next question was, considering you've gone into lots of wonderful detail about how Pelgrane works, could we maybe get a little bit of a zoom in on how does a Pelgrane process, how does a Pelgrane product come to be? Are they made to order, or do you just get like a writer coming up to you with an amazing idea, or is it sort of the happy medium between those two things?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's very much, there are a lot of different ways that it can happen. So the kind of core one, I guess, like I said, we've got 3 kind of main writers that work for us. Well, 4 main writers who work for us. So we're always interested. They tend to pitch us their ideas first. So Rob Haynes, who does 13th Age, Ken Height, Robin Laws, and Gar Hanran, will all kind of, if they have an idea for a game that they think would be fun, they'll usually kind of come to us with it first before, they'll give us first refusal on it. And, we publish a lot of their games. So they're definitely very influential in terms of the creative direction of the company. But then there's also, we have ended up working with some people who have just kind of speculatively, pitched us a project, and we've gone, oh, that sounds, that's a good fit for our existing, for our brand and for our existing product line. And it doesn't kind of impinge on anything else that we're working on. So, so we might kind of go with that if somebody just kind of pitches something that worked. We've also kind of approached specific writers and asked, and commissioned them to do projects that we think their style would be a good fit for. And we've done a lot of work as well, trying to bring more kind of underrepresented voices into the industry. So we've often approached people with specific projects that were designed to kind of help newer writers to get engaged with the writing process and how that works. And there's also, like I mentioned earlier, Gumshoe 1-to-1, which is our 1-player, 1GM Gumshoe adaptation. And that actually came about because I was at a convention I was at UK Games Expo in the UK, and a couple came up to me and they said, oh, which of your Trail of Cthulhu products would you recommend for 2 people? There's just the 2 of us, we'd really like to play a game at home together. And I was kind of looking at our range and I was going, well, actually there isn't, you could kind of hack most of these to work for just 1 player, but that's not really what they were designed to do. So, so I brought that then to the kind of team and I said, how would people feel about doing like a 1-player, 1GM game? And, people thought that it was a good idea. So we gave that a go, and that's been really successful for us. People are really, really interested in that. And especially since lockdown as well, so many people are kind of stuck at home, right? With just the partner or whatever. So, yeah, so it's really, like, honestly, we have so many ideas, and there's always the issue of like having the bandwidth to work on things. But we get new books and we work on new RPGs from a number of different sources.
I guess this is maybe me throwing a bone to Savage here, but is it similar for the art pipeline? Do you find yourself? Do you find artists are bringing stuff to you, or is it all based on a style guide?
I've got all this artwork of Sherlock Holmes, but he's a pig, and I really think it'd be a great basis for a game. I guess another way of attacking that is, how do you decide on what sort of art ends up in a role-playing book? Like, what makes good art to support, telling people how, what makes good art for a role-playing book, and attack that on what do you consider useful as a handout for players?
Oh, okay, interesting. So I very much tend to look for kind of a narrative style of art. So I look for art that tells a story, that, you look at it and it's not just a flat image. There's something that leads you into asking questions about what's happening. So if you can kind of imagine, it's more like illustrating a scene than than a particular object or something like that. So we very much tend to illustrate narratively, but also obviously if we're inventing a new monster or something like that, we'll usually have illustrations of that. So the kind of good art that you need is art that's either, again, like narrative inspiring or kind of, really presents to the players what that setting is like, what it's like to be actually physically in that setting, or art that kind of educates the players on different aspects within that setting that maybe aren't in our own real world. Like if you have a real world modern day setting, you can pretty much just do really kind of, fantastical narrativist art, because you don't have to explain to anyone what things are. Whereas if you're dealing in like sci-fi or fantasy settings, sometimes you might need to actually illustrate objects or people or monsters, or and you're literally kind of demonstrating what those things are like in the setting.
So whoever's running the game just turn the book around and say, it looks like that. That's the thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. This is the weird half mushroom, half cloud thing that you're currently fighting. Yeah. Those were just the first things that came to my head. I don't know why. Also, that might be cool. But yeah, in terms of handouts, we have, there's a whole saga about us and handouts, because I made a kind of a horrible mistake when we were doing our Dracula dossier Kickstarter, and I got a really fantastic Australian artist called Dame Engelhart to design some handouts for us, but they were so cool that it's kind of a modern day spies versus vampires game.
Yeah.
And these were just all of these fantastic spy documents, kind of replica documents from dating back to actually the original novel of Dracula. And they were so cool that I was like, oh, we'll have to actually, he really kind of captured all of the different eras. There was documents from the 1890s, from the 1970s, from the modern day, from the 1940s, and all of these different periods had like a real period flavor, as well as that a really kind of a military governmental kind of spy overriding theme.
So everything from sort of lined ledgers to teletype to faxes.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, they're just really, really incredible, and like such a wide variety of different kind of, because it's like ultimately a handout is text on a page, right? So it's tricky to make that different, and he somehow managed to do like 40 different, completely unique handouts that were all still really thematically connected to each other. It was fantastic. So yeah, I mean, handouts, like, again, you're trying to do two things, the same two things with art, I think, that you're doing with handouts, where, you're either displaying and illustrating the system or the setting, or you're educating players. So you're kind of telling them something they don't already know. And if you're going for more of a kind of a flavor, this is what the world is like, you can be more abstracted with it. Whereas if it's a more educational, or if it's a prop document or a handout that the players need, again, in our games, they're mostly mystery solving. So if the players actually need that to solve the mystery, then it needs to be intelligible, right? There's no point abstracting it out to nothing if the players then spend 2 hours sitting there looking at it going, what does this mean? So it needs to be kind of a little bit more direct and less, more literal, I guess.
So what was the problem with the Dracula dossier? I'm not skipping over this.
Okay. Well, the TLDR was that we had promised, they were in a pledge level that 500 people had ordered. So me and Simon, then when I came back here, me and my mother and my sister and my 8-year-old niece, as she was at the time, all spent a lot of time individually tea soaking and baking and tearing and stapling and sellotaping and sticking stickers to and flicking ink on various prop documents, because we had
this is no longer print. This is real sort of artifact level,
absolutely
prop level stuff. Wow, that's exactly amazing. That's amazing commitment to your customers. Well done. Wow. That's not oh no. That's oh yeah.
Yeah. That's an amazing effort.
Um,
Another thing that Pelgrane does quite a lot, and this is something I think is actually probably one of the more iconic things about it, is that it is Pelgrane very strongly link their products to the authors of those products. Like, if I had read 4th edition 1,000 times, I would not know who Rob Heinzu is. But I know who he is because he is one of the leading writers on 13th Age. And everything, there's a very similar Ken Haidt and Robin D. Laws and Gar Hanrahan. They have very strong identities as Pelgrane authors. So what drove that decision to put that focus on the authors of books, and what effect do you think that has had on your company?
Wow, that's a really interesting question. I don't know that it was a kind of a conscious decision. I mean, I think it's probably Simon is always very quick to give people credit where credit is due. And he's also always operated on a philosophy of getting the best people in to do the work that needs to be done. So I think probably those two things contributed to really kind of putting the focus on the authors. And again, like when Simon and Robin were working on the Dying Earth RPG, like Robin has always gone above and beyond. You know, he's always been like really good to kind of promote the books that he's working on. And, you know, like I said, we have this kind of Slack channel and he's really active there. He's just kind of taken the lead on making a load of YouTube videos for us and stuff. And it's the same with Ken. You know, if Ken goes to a convention or whatever, if he does a panel, you know, he'll talk about the books that he's worked on. So I think we've really, you know, we have like massive respect for what like Ken and Robin and Gar and Rob and all of our writers do. You know, they're incredibly talented writers and designers. And I think that there is a kind of a reciprocal, well, I hope that there's a reciprocal kind of respect there, where they know that we'll always, like kind of Simon and I and Becky, kind of on the more production side, they know that we'll always try and, you know, we'll always try and make their books, their work, sing, right? You know, we'll really do everything we can to make them as writers and designers look good through their work. And I think that when you have a mutual respect like that, it makes it a lot easier to work with people. And also it makes, you know, it kind of builds loyalty. Like we really trust each other as, you know, sometimes there can be a kind of conflict between publishers and kind of writers and artists, you know, like there's almost a sided kind of thing there. But, you know, they're incredibly loyal to Pelgrane and Pelgrane is incredibly loyal to them, you know, and that reciprocity means that we get kind of the best of their work, really, I think anyway. And that's really helped us, you know, as a company. I would hope that we're known for the quality of our writing and our game design, and I think it's because of that mutual trust and respect that we've ended up there.
It's good to hear. It's a good mark of the industry. Another mark of Pelgrane, I think, has been that you haven't been afraid to put out more bleeding edge products. Actually, no. I'll say you've been putting out some groundbreaking products, like #feminism has been just kind of growing, just a growing movement in the industry. And then there's your upcoming Honey and Hot Wax to help push some more boundaries. How hard has it been to put out that kind of material, and do you think it's having a positive effect on the industry?
I really hope that it is. I mean, I always kind of talk about RPGs and about role playing being a medium, right? It's a medium for storytelling. It's a way of telling stories, and for a very long time, I think, you know, we've only told kind of genre-focused stories. So we've only told fantasy stories or sci-fi stories or horror stories, and I think there are a lot more. Things that we can explore with role-playing. Any role player knows the kind of empathy that they feel towards a character, and if you can take that empathy and take it away from empathizing towards an elf or a dwarf and turn it into empathizing with somebody who has a different life experience to you, I mean, that to me just, it seems like an underutilized way of approaching role-playing, I guess. So I'm really interested in role-playing not only as a form of entertainment, but also as a way of educating people and of building connections between people. So it's been, we've gotten some flack, right? The internet is the internet, and there are, a lot of trolls under rocks out there. And we've gotten some flack for it. Anything we've done that's kind of like that, that's kind of bleeding edge, has inevitably turned up some negative feedback from the internet. Like I was saying earlier, we're just phenomenally lucky that Pelgrane customers just really support our more kind of progressive products like that. They've been really in agreement with us and kind of with us on that journey and agreeing with us and supporting us through it, I think. So that's really helped in terms of encouraging us to make more products like that. And it's kind of a design goal, I guess, as well for the company, in terms of how we decide what games, and this kind of comes back to what you were asking earlier about how do we decide what games we do. So we have kind of my kind of key criteria for deciding about games is, whether, obviously, first of all, are they commercial? Will they actually bring money into the company? Because we need that to keep going. But then the other two concerns or questions I have is, first of all, is this interesting? Is this doing something new and exciting for role-playing as a hobby, right? Are we doing things that are kind of helping to develop and extend this art form that we're working in? And then also, like I said, can we bring in people who are currently underrepresented in our industry through this product? And those are, I guess, kind of the 3 points of the triangle of how I decide about what RPGs I would like us to be publishing.
Oh, that's good. One of our listeners asked to ask you, is there an ETA on Honey and Hot Wax? They are waiting patiently.
Oh, yay!
It wasn't me, but I'm interested. We're sending kind of layout samples back and forth at the moment, so we should definitely have that by the end of June. Just to follow up, what sort of armor class can we expect black studded leather to get in that system? Just asking for a friend.
Yeah, there's you get damage bonuses for whips.
For the whips.
Yeah, and chains.
The pleasure and pain combat system.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a bunch of very confused adventurers standing around going, I thought you said this was a dungeon. It's not like any dungeon I've seen, mate.
Dungeons have multiple uses.
Yeah, that one's got a wet bar. Okay, what's we've so much stuff, Kat, but we're not going to hold you for too long. But Shane, what's next? Fire the next round quickly.
I want to come back to a point that you mentioned earlier, that how you've sort of instilled the sort of convention atmosphere into Pelgrane and made the convention scene a staple of your business. But obviously this year the convention scene has had to go into hibernation. Has that had a major impact on you? Has it affected sales? Has it affected the chance to meet people that you'd normally expect to have? Or has it given you excuse to branch out into other products such as the Roll20 and other virtual tabletop spaces?
Yeah, I feel like it's probably a bit of a cop-out to say both, but the answer actually is kind of both. So like I love meeting people as a person, and I love I love chatting to people about our games, and I specifically love hearing people's stories about what they're doing with our games. Like I love hearing about people's home games, people's home campaigns, like all of that. So I'm really missing the opportunity to chat to our customers, and also to chat to colleagues in the industry as well, because kind of it's only by meeting up at conventions that we can touch base with each other, find out what everyone's doing, because everyone's always so busy. So I really miss it from that perspective. Like it's probably the number one way we get new customers is from going to conventions, because every convention has its own kind of, it has its own scene, it's got its own people that go to it, and they might not necessarily go to other conventions, they mightn't necessarily be on social media or be very active online. So there's definitely, we're definitely going to take a hit in terms of kind of new customer acquisition. That's been the biggest kind of impact that it's had, as well as getting the opportunity to talk to people about our new games and talk to people about our existing games. But the move to virtual conventions, going to a lot of the conventions that we go to are based in the US. And I love going to conventions, so I always kind of insist on going. And that's very expensive, and it's very bad for the environment. So there's a whole aspect where, a lot of the conventions that we would go to in a year have moved online now. And because I don't have to, I'm not going to get that same connection with people, because I'm not going to be standing there on a booth talking to people. But equally, because I'm not going to be standing on a booth talking to people, I can do more kind of seminars, I can do more panels, I can run more games. All of these are things that, because I'm more on the production kind of admin back end side, I tend to end up, kind of on the booth managing that most of the time. So it kind of opens up conventions to me in a way that, maybe they haven't been open if I was going to them and standing on a booth. So
yeah, and it lets you take interviews from small time Irish podcasts.
You're not small time. You're totally big time.
We're in certain hell. We don't care. We're having a good time.
I think we've covered most of it. I think I should probably. I know we've had other questions.
We had a whole section on the pandemic, but I feel like everybody knows what the story is there. Is there anything, Kat, you'd like to say about the current crisis?
In particular, I think.
Sorry, I've just.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I've just remembered that Shane, you actually did specifically ask about the move online and Roll20 and things, and that has been. Yeah, so for a long time, we've really wanted to do more videos on YouTube, and we've really wanted to get into the streaming side of things on Twitch, because I think that a lot of the people who are coming into D&D specifically are kind of getting trapped in the D&D industry, which is now almost kind of separate from the rest of the role-playing industry. But yeah, so we've known for a long time that... we've known for a long time that we need to be on Twitch, we need to be on YouTube. That's where the kids are, right? And we're all like, Gareth and myself are like the youngest people in the company, and and we're very old now. So we don't really know what the kids are doing, and we need to kind of get down with the kids and get onto those more virtual channels. And it's been something that we've really wanted to do, but it hasn't been something that we've prioritized until lockdown due to the pandemic. And then we basically reached out to our customers and we said, what do you need from us right now? What could we give you that would be the most helpful, that would be the most useful to you right now? And the number one thing they said was, like, as well as wanting the connection with us, as well as missing conventions and the panels. So we've ended up doing a lot of YouTube kind of seminars and panels and stuff. But another thing they said they wanted was more virtual tabletop support. So yeah, we've got a production apprentice, Noah Lloyd, has been working a lot on that. So we already had a small 13th Age presence on Roll20. because certainly 13th Age as a D20 fantasy game works really, really well on like virtual tabletops. They really add, the dice rollers and the calculations of different modifiers work really well for that. But a lot of our other games are more kind of theatre of the mind focused, so they don't have the same need for the bells and whistles, but it is still useful to have kind of character sheets and adventures up there. So that's what we're working on at the moment is kind of, like I said, building out our Roll20, our Astral tabletop, which is connected to Drive-Thru RPG, and our Fantasy Grounds presence. So we're kind of working on improving all of that at the moment.
And is Astral being sort of developed as a virtual tabletop first property? Is it trying to leverage any of those advantages?
As far as I know, no. They're kind of. I'm not quite sure off the top of my head what the connection between Drive-Thru and Astral is, but I know that there's a lot of Astral are getting a lot of support from the Drive-Thru team, and I know that they're kind of working very closely together. So I suspect that there will be a lot of crossover there, because it's quite a new VTT competitor as far as I know. So yeah, but it seems to be really easy to use so far. So we're liking it.
Right.
Well, Kat, you've been wonderful. This has been quite a set of questions. I'd like to leave off with just one last question.
Mm-hmm.
What is Pelgrane releasing the next year that you're most happy to put your name on?
Oh wow!
Sneak preview time, folks. Lean closer. Listen harder.
Yeah, I am really excited about Honey and Halfbacks. I think that's a really interesting, like you said, really bleeding edge, a really interesting collection. It came from a really interesting perspective. The designers who are kind of pulling it together, Sharon Biswas and Lucian Khan, are really, they're really kind of. They have a lot of really interesting ideas and kind of really strong opinions on how they want it to look as well, and how they want it to be and what they wanted to do. And that's really interesting to me. I'm really kind of happy with how that's come out. And it's, reading through it, it's pretty sexy. It's cool. So I'm really, really interested to see what kind of reception that gets. They've got some really great writers and designers in there as well. And Swords of the Serpentine is a kind of a gumshoe sword and sorcery game that we've only just released the pre-order for it, and people are very, very excited about it, which is fantastic. So it's kind of Fritz Lieber's Langmar and kind of Terry Pratchett's Ankh-Morpork, kind of that kind of with medieval urban Venice. So it's kind of guilds and political intrigue and skullduggery, and I don't know if you've read like The Lies of Loch Lamora, but that same kind of feel.
Wow, it's that kind of thing. Lots of great stuff in there. Franz the Grey Mouser, Thieves' World.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. I'll definitely check that one out, because that sort of urban kind of fantasy stuff is kind of high on my list. Blades in the Dark being probably the last great release in that area. Actually, well, that was Shane's final question, and I'll use Blades in the Dark to lead me into my final question. Given how focused Pelgrane are in bigging up their writers, who's on the hit list? What writer or game creator is out there that you haven't worked with so far and you're absolutely gunning to get one of their products on the shelf?
Oh my gosh! Oh wow! Oh wow! That's a really
that's harder than Daddy and Chips, isn't it?
That's a much harder question than Daddy or Chips. Oh my gosh! Let me think. So the thing is, I've been really lucky in that we have worked with a load of people. Like, I was such a massive Unknown Armies fangirl back in the day, and and we're kind of working with a lot of the we worked with Greg Stolze on a novel more so than a game. So it would be really cool to work on a game with him. John Tynes as well. We worked with him very closely on the license for Delta Green, the role-playing game, but he hasn't kind of designed anything for us, so that would be really cool. Oh wow, yeah. And then, yeah, I would be really interested, I think, to see what Misha Buschjager would do because she's really interested in horror, and she does a lot of kind of horror work and horror analysis, and she's kind of interested in ideas behind horror. So I have kind of half an idea in my head of like talking to her at some point. Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Well, that's a pretty good list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I know, yeah. It's
well, you know what? Maybe we're going to have you back on sometime in the future, and you can finally give us the definitive answer on that one. But Shane, I'll let you take us out.
Kat, you've been amazing. This has been an amazing interview, and you've definitely given us all kinds of insights into how West Cork is going to steamroll D&D. Just
yeah.
Put West of the Coast out of action. The Irish spirit is coming back to role playing.
Absolutely, yeah. And wait until I set up my like all Irish RPG company as well. Like that's going to be, yeah.
Yeah. Just roll the entire industry over.
Yep.
Thanks again, Kat. You've been amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
I presume people can see you on social media. Do you have any particular shout outs you'd like to go?
So you can find us, we're Pelgrane Press on pretty much all social media. So we're Pelgrane Press on Facebook, we're at Pelgrane Press on Twitter. I'm at THM on Twitter, and I think I'm Katrina Tobin now on Facebook, but you can probably still find me by searching for like Kat Tobin on Facebook. So I think we're both I and Pelgrane are also on Instagram, but I don't tend to update that very much. I should do.
And
presumably
you have a
Twitch and
YouTube and Twitch channel.
Oh yeah, we've got
up.
YouTube. Yeah, so our YouTube is also Pelgrane Press. I don't know if there's a complicated number URL, but I'm sure that if you Google for Pelgrane Press, you'll be able to see all of our videos. So, like I said, we're doing kind of things like investigative role playing masterclasses, dramatic role-playing masterclasses. We're doing kind of putting Cthulhu into your fantasy games. And we've also got a couple of actual plays up there as well. There's people are running through a Dracula dossier campaign for us at the moment. So all of that's kind of up on our YouTube channel, as well as like little kind of funny interview things with us, where we talk about our favorite monster or our favorite gumshoe ability or that kind of thing.
Oh, nice.
And presumably TikTok and a Bebo page coming soon.
I should probably get on TikTok. The kids are all there as well, aren't they now?
MySpace is still going, just in case anyone's wondering. I was looking at this the other night. Yeah, Bebo's gone, but MySpace is back.
No.
Anyways. All right, Shane, you better kick us out now.
Pug form. Yes. Thanks once again, Kat. You've been amazing. And if you have any other award-winning, groundbreaking West Cork RPG company directors that you'd like us to interview, please hit us up on your social media.
Excellent.
Thanks very much for having me, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with Kat on the way out the door, that unfortunately means this party's over.
Thank you for listening to The Adventuring Party. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail, you can head on over to SpeakPipe and drop us a line. Or you can join us on our Discord server, where we keep the party going after hours. Otherwise, you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, or Twitter. Or you can email the hosts at party@theadventuringparty.net. The Adventuring Party is released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike version 3 license. But you probably knew that already. We hope you enjoyed the episode and look forward to seeing you back here next week. Goodbye.